Good evening and welcome back to 31 Horror Nights. It's October 27th and tonight's classic is Scream. Directed by Wes Craven, the same guy who directed A Nightmare on Elm Street and other horror movies, Scream was a pretty big deal around the time of its release. It was released in 1996 and it sort of started that sort of like self-aware horror movie sort of thing. There were elements of satire, not really comedy or parody, but it was definitely self-aware. And it's very likely to be my least favorite movie of this entire month. I hated Scream. I'm giving it a 3 out of 10. I disliked it more than I disliked An American Werewolf in London. Wes Craven certainly has a talent for making me hate every single character in a movie except for the lead. He also has a talent for having really good ideas for horror movies and then executing them in the most infuriating way possible. Though, to give A Nightmare on Elm Street credit, at least in that movie, everybody was useless. In this movie, every single character except for the lead is either a horrible person, an idiot, or both. And the main character has her horrible moments too. But before we get into that, let's talk about the story. The plot of Scream is that there's this serial killer who's raiding this small town in California, and his main calling card seems to be calling the victims. He also talks about scary movies a lot. And I will say this, the opening kill of this movie is done wonderfully. Everything comes together perfectly. Drew Barrymore gives a very good performance as Casey, the opening kill girl. It's paced well, it's executed properly. This made me think it was going to be a much better movie than it ended up being. By the way, that Halloween mask, the sort of elongated crying skull thing, I thought that was popularized by this movie, but apparently no, it was a dime score, everyday Halloween costume even before this movie. Not only does this killer not look very intimidating, he also just kind of sucks. He loses a lot of fights. A lot of the people would be able to get away from him pretty easily if they weren't stupid. But thankfully for the Ghostface killer, this is a town full of idiots. And jerks, now that I think about it. There's just so many characters in this movie that are either incredibly annoying, extremely shallow, or just don't care about anything. In a lot of other movies, these characters would be bullies, not the leads. The only good character in the entire movie is the lead, Sydney, played by Neve Campbell. And she is a very good lead. Her character is developed, it's well acted, and she does have her moments of being a terrible person, but those are like set up. We can see where they're coming from, and she acknowledges that she went too far when she says something like that. But nobody else in this movie seems to have that excuse. One thing I will give this movie is that there's a lot of good build-up of mystery in the first 2 acts of this film. And a lot of slasher movies like this, you know who the killer is. You know that it's Jason, or Michael, or Freddy, or Leatherface. But in this one, you have no idea who the killer is, and considering how much everyone in this town sucks, it could pretty much be anybody. Also, on a few occasions, they have maybe this person might be the killer because, they say something that seems weird or they indicate that there's something off. But one time when they did that, they sort of established the person might be it, and then they killed them 2 scenes later. It also does not use being self-aware to its advantage. One of the very famous lines in this movie is the main character saying, "Oh, some big-breasted girl who can't act, running around from a serial killer, going into the house or up the stairs instead of leaving." Yeah, a lot of characters in horror movies make stupid decisions. Now, you'd think that this would mean that this movie would be smarter than that, and how the characters make smart decisions, but no, they keep making dumb decisions too. Pretty much a few minutes after she says that, she does that exact same thing when she's being chased by the killer, going upstairs in the house instead of trying to leave when she's being chased. Probably the dumbest scene in this entire movie is that one of the characters is in a garage with a little pet door for a cat, a very small one. And when the Ghostface killer is attacking them, they try to escape through the doggy door in the garage. Thankfully, the killer knew that this is the most powerful and dangerous garage door on the planet, because he just presses the open button and then it goes up and crushes that person's skull. And by the way, I kept waiting for somebody to come across that body, but in the movie, it probably took 4 hours for anybody to even notice it. I know that making stupid decisions and having characters that are terrible people are not rare in horror movies. I acknowledge that. It's a trope, and this movie sort of plays with that trope. But I don't know, it's just everybody pretty much just sucks in this movie. And for example, in Unfriended, everybody sucked there, but in that one it's framed as a very bad thing, and they got what the movie at least thinks that they deserved. In this one, they're just supposed to be normal people, and we're supposed to be sad about them dying. This movie also has an awful lot of filler. This was a 90-minute movie in a 2-hour movie's body. Unlike An American Werewolf in London, which started out okay and then progressively got gradually worse as the movie continued, this one is bad for most of it, but has like a few flashes of absolutely brilliant like ideas and scenes and stuff like that. And I think that this is a little bit more annoying because I know that there's something really good in here, but I'm kind of distracted by all the things in it I can't stand. Other people might recommend Scream, but you're not going to hear a recommendation of this coming from me. I pretty much hated this movie. There were good things in it, but there were too many bad things in it as well. Alright, now let's go into some spoilers. The climax of this movie takes place at a house party. There were already like a couple other murder scenes, the one with the garage door I was telling you about, but it eventually comes to the point where the main character's boyfriend, I think his name was Billy, gets stabbed by the killer and she escapes and goes out. And later, the twist is that he wasn't actually dead. That was all just faking it. And there were other things in the movie that implied that there were two people in doing these. Obviously, like, you couldn't really tell them apart because they were both just the exact same cheapo Halloween costume. And yes, they were two of the characters that we knew. Neve Campbell's character's boyfriend, Billy, and this one other character, her friend Tatum's boyfriend, who absolutely sucked, by the way. I hated him. His name was Stu. So yeah, it's revealed that it's them, but the ending, like after that, it gets dragged out for like what feels like 20 minutes. It just keeps going. Like they like lay out a bunch of exposition about why they did that, and it's like, oh, we don't need motives, we're just crazy or stuff like that. It's really ridiculous, and the climax just keeps going and going, and there's so many like fake outs, like, oh, you think this person's gonna save the day, but they don't, or you think this person was dead, but they're not, and it just gets annoying after that much time. There are some badass moments in the climax where Sydney and friends manage to turn the tables on the ghosts and stuff like that, but not only does it just keep going on for too long, it just gets annoying after a while. What could have been a good climax was ruined because they dragged it out too long trying to prove how meta and clever they were. Well, not the worst thing in the world, Scream is just absolutely not my type of movie. I hated watching it, and I would not recommend it to anybody listening. If you like it, that's fine, but don't ask me to ever see it again. Alright, I'll see y'all tomorrow.